talking about Harbaugh, and he's right now a very big topic of conversation in American sports, certainly in American football. He's an extremely controversial figure. Um, I happen to like him very much, but I understand how difficult he can be. But I want to share something with you people, which I haven't done. When I retired, um, a few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail, and it was from University of Michigan. I opened the letter, and it's a typewritten letter from Jim Harbaugh. Um, I guess he heard that I was retiring, and he wrote me a letter. And a lot of people think he's a very abrasive person, and he can be. But I'm going to read you, if you don't mind, parts of this letter. And he signed it, Jim Harbaugh. And I was extremely surprised and touched. So I'm going to read you a little so you'll see another side of Jim Harbaugh. Please bear with me, it's not long. Dear Mr. Cohn, he doesn't even call me Lowell, which is very interesting. Heartfelt congratulations to you on the occasion of your retirement. You are a man I truly respect because of your principles and convictions. Your passion and work ethic are at the highest level. Your sense of humor and dry wit were always appreciated, and your mannerisms and facial expressions were pure genius. I couldn't take my eyes off you. They were the highlights of every press conference, so much so that I looked forward to seeing you each week, even though you were holding us accountable. Watching you and Grant do your thing alongside one another and the mutual respect and admiration you show for each other was special for me because of my own relationship with my father. I can tell your father taught you well. I am sure that a savvy veteran like yourself knows how much I respect and like you and Grant. I am not very good at hiding that from those I admire. Still, I didn't want to just tell you that for fear that you might take any heat off your fastball. I enjoyed the challenge. It was a joy watching you and Grant work alongside each other, just and you as you and your father might have. We share something in common. We are both the products of extraordinary fathers who had uncommon trust in us. Today, your dad would be so proud of you, just as I know Grant is. I am always, I am and always have been a fan of yours and Grant's. Respectfully, Jim Harbaugh, head coach, University of Michigan. Now, that's a beautiful letter. And what happened was when my book, Gloves Off, was coming out, I texted Jim and asked him, could I use that letter as my afterword? And he wrote back and said he'd be honored. So that's the letter he wrote me, and it's the afterword to my book. And it certainly shows you a whole other side of Harbaugh. And one of the things that I take away from that letter is his appreciation of fathers and sons. I loved my dad. We called him Mickey. I loved my dad. He was such a wonderful man and an influence on me. And I tried to treat Iggy the way Mickey treated me. And Harbaugh saw it. He was sensitive to it. And my heart goes out to Jim. I always root for him when he's playing a game.
What's kind of interesting too is Kyle and his dad have that relationship as well, it seems. Kyle and Mike.
Yes.
I don't know if Kyle's at the point where he could write a letter like that and express what that relationship means to him and recognize something similar in people that are holding him accountable. But you wouldn't expect that from Jim Harbaugh. He's a lot more complicated than people understand.
Right. This was one of the most beautiful letters I ever received in my life. And I want to say, Iggy, I'm up here, I'm alone, it's raining, and I'm feeling a little emotional, a little nostalgic today. You know, sometimes people on Twitter write really cruel things, and they say, you know, Lowell, you don't know anything about sports, and the 49ers always hated you and all that. I just want to tell you who wrote the introduction, the forwards to my book. One was Steve Young. I don't think he hated me. I mean, he wrote the forward to my book, and there were two forwards. The other was from Brian Murphy. And Murph, you may not know it because you hear him on KMBR. Iggy, you would agree that Murph is a superior writer, a
Oh,
brilliant writer. Oh,
yeah,
and he doesn't write that much anymore, but the forward that he wrote, I read it occasionally, and it brings tears to my eyes. How much it means to me, and I love Murph. And there was this thing from Harbaugh, and on the back you have to have people write little blurbs for you, and it was Dusty Baker, Brent Jones, and Chris Mullen. Chris Mullen and I go back a long time, and we're from the same Brooklyn neighborhood. I live at one end of Avenue L. He lived at the other, and we used to both play ball at my junior high school, Huddy, it's called. Of course, not at the same time. He was much younger than I am, but um, people don't much think about Chris Mullen anymore. Chris Mullen is one of the all-time great basketball players, certainly one of the all-time great warriors, and an absolutely all-time great guy. And
absolutely.
that's that.
Jason
Oh,
says, "Good morning from Korea, Cones. I rarely get to see your live shows with the time difference, and your vibes get me by while missing my family for the year I'm stationed here. Keep up the great work."
I
Thank you,
hope you
Jason.
have a good year, Jason, and thank you so much.
Obi-Wan 49 says, "I still feel Walsh was more of a genius than Belichick."
I totally agree.
Fish and Chip says, "Shirt and tie Grant needs to return." Yeah, that was an underrated aspect of that. Me wearing a shirt and tie and pajama bottoms in my apartment. Simpler times. Simpler times. Thanks for watching, everyone. That's the Cone Zone. Dad, I'm going to call you up,
Thank.
and I love you.
I love you, Iggy. Goodbye.
Hold on,
Goodbye,
hold
everybody.
on.
Hold
At the
on.
at the buzzer, Too Much Sauce says, "This is the GOAT show along with you and the coach." Thank you, Too Much
One
Sauce.
coach is great. Coach is great.
Yeah.